All right, we're ready to stream live. Those of you that are joining us via the webinar, welcome. We will be live here on Facebook in just a few moments. So we're just going to wait until a few more people join us. And now we're live. So I'm so excited that each and every one of you are back here with us today. Jim Cathcart and myself, David Bush, the host of the Extraordinary Life Show, are extraordinarily excited to be able to share some great ideas and some great tips on how you can live the extraordinary life. Today we're going to be talking about noticing more, and Jim's going to be covering some simple principles, some strategies and tactics to help you to live a more extraordinary life. Last week we talked about the idea of defining an extraordinary life, and Jim went into depth on how it was a mindset and how it was going beyond what's usual, regular, and customary. It's doing the things that maybe other people aren't doing, and taking chances, taking risks, and going outside your comfort zone. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the habits and the patterns that extraordinary leaders develop. These are ordinary people who developed extraordinary habits and had extraordinarily discipline and commitment and persistence to live an extraordinary life. And today you're going to get a chance to hear those. If you are wanting to go back and review previous episodes, you can go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/live the extraordinary life. You can also check us out on the web at theextraordinarylife.com. And if you just click on the community tab, you can get all of the links and appropriate resources, as well as download a free ebook, watch other videos, and access our blog articles. So with no further ado, we're going to introduce the sales and marketing Hall of Fame speaker, the motivation expert, my partner, Jim Cathcart. Welcome, Jim. The drum solo. I forgot.
There we go. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Extraordinary Life. This is a day for you to become extraordinary. You know, I was thinking, as David and I were preparing for this show, I was thinking about who the viewers are. And we've got a number of different types of viewers. We've got some people who are living extraordinary lives, seriously. And they just tune in because they like the reassurance, the reinforcement, and kind of reaffirming of what they're doing right. And that's cool, and it's great to have them on board. And I'd love to get comments from those of you who are already feeling like you're in that category and you've got some tips or some ideas. So feel free to use the chat function on this Zoom webinar. And then we've got people who are just fans. You know, they just like David. They like to hang out with David, or they enjoy hearing my voice or watching me or something, you know, I don't know. But we've got fans and friends that just tune in to be good people and be with us, and we appreciate that very much. And we've also got some people who are coming to us kind of hoping, you know, people whose lives are not, in their minds, extraordinary, and they're hoping that they can find some ideas where they can start making a difference, start feeling a little bit more sense of meaning, start gaining a little bit more hope in what they're doing. And I want to tell you, today we're going to focus on the one thing that's a starting point for all of us, and that is to increase your success IQ. You know, the IQ, intelligence quotient, could be measured clinically by a doctor, a researcher, and they might tell you what the processing power of your brain would be. But that's not really useful much in day-to-day living. But if you think of IQ, intelligence quotient, your intellectual capacity for blank, you can take a category and increase your intelligence in that category no matter what the processing power is of your brain itself, within reason. So all of us have pretty much all the brain power we need to live an abundant and very fulfilling life. What we need to do in order to tap it more is what I call notice more. Let me explain. Let's say you want to become more intelligent about landscaping. You know, just pick a topic out of the air. Landscaping. If you want to become more intelligent about landscaping, Understand that no matter what you want to become intelligent about, intelligence itself means making distinctions, noticing details, noticing patterns, understanding principles that make things work, seeing, repeating routines and patterns. So landscaping, you look at what kind of landscaping. Major landscaping that requires earth moving equipment, landscaping that is mostly focused on rocks and stone structures, landscaping that involves walls or patios or stones or types of grass. I don't know. You know, the more you notice, the more you know, and you can get specific. So you could specialize in masonry. You could specialize in turf. You could specialize in flowers. You could specialize in, see what I mean? Sprinkler systems, landscaping, landscape lighting. It goes on and on and on and on. The more you notice, the more you know, and the more options you see. And the person with the most options usually wins. So in any situation, the more you see about it, the more you notice and reflect on it and think about it, the more your understanding expands and your intelligence about that topic grows. The same thing could be applied to simply knowing more about your next prospect. If you
Very true.
Yeah, you're trying to cultivate business with someone, like about 30 minutes ago, I was on a phone call with a client, and the first thing I wanted to do to be more prepared for that call was I wanted to know more about the client. So I went to their website and I explored everything. I explored the things that wouldn't be of interest to me. I looked at About Us. I looked at their various products. I looked at the regions, the locations in which they were operating. I looked at restrictions. I looked at frequently asked questions. I looked, you know, from the eyes of a customer, from the eyes of a provider, from the eyes of a competitor or a colleague, from the eyes of a potential employee. I just spent better part of a half hour just exploring their website. And then when I was talking with the client, I listened a lot instead of talking a lot, because I could have, you know, I knew all this about the website. I could have just rambled and tried to impress them with what I knew. I didn't. I just asked questions. And then as I asked some of the questions, I would drop in the use of a term that I just picked up on their website. And the client said, "What, you know about that?" I said, "Well, not much, but I saw it on your website and I understand it's da-da-da-da-da. Is that true?" "Yeah." And, you know, it just, all of a sudden it removed a little bit of their anxiety about doing business with me. And they started seeing, this guy cares. He's engaged. You know, he's not just trying to sell me something, and I wasn't. And that conversation went very well. And we've got a follow-up conversation coming this afternoon. Looking good. Okay. So choose your topic. You want to become more intelligent about your health and your well-being? Join with David and me in our 28-day meltdown challenge and take off the excess weight and build up your fitness and nutrition and hook up with us and Mario Martinez and join that challenge. There'll be David can put a link in the chat for you so that you can go to that today and sign up. It's quick and easy, and it gives you 30 days of our input to help you get more intelligent about your own well-being. So noticing more, if that becomes a mantra, kind of echoes in your head all the time, and in every new situation, whether you get in your car, whether you arrive at a friend's house, you go to a country club for a luncheon, you go to a movie theater, whenever you've got a second to just detach from whatever you're doing, say to yourself, notice more, and just look around. Notice the sounds, notice the room, notice the movement of people, notice the tools and equipment, the things nearby, notice the dangers, notice the safety. You know, if you're walking through a big crowd in an airport, ask yourself, what if a terror situation emerged? Where would I dive or hide, you know, to keep myself safe? Or if you're walking along with your child near traffic, what if a car ran off the road suddenly? What would I do to keep myself and my child safe? Just notice more. And as you do, this will become a new habit pattern for you in thinking. And every part of your life will start to expand. And you'll start to see opportunities where you didn't see them before. It's what's known as selective perception. Next time you're in a crowd, just detach from the crowd and get a good vantage point where you can see all the people. You know, like in a theater or in a stadium would be the easiest. At a sporting event, look at the stands across from you, and then just say to yourself, notice more red. And it will amaze you the way the color red just sort of pops all of a sudden. And you think, wow, where'd that come from? Well, nowhere. You just tuned into it more. And then say, okay, notice more yellow. Wow, it'll happen again. White, black, whatever. Notice more things, notice more movement, notice more patterns, whatever. But as this becomes your habit pattern, you'll be so on top of things that other people will be saying to you, what's changed about you? What are you doing differently? David, what's your observation on this?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about here, Jim, is we're talking about the idea of, stop sleepwalking through life and be awakened to the enormous land of opportunity that surrounds you. The opportunity to spend time with your kids or your grandkids, the relationships you can begin to become more deepened with when you begin to ask more questions versus having small talk or having your smart device opened up and you're searching the newest and latest and greatest app, or you're just sleepwalking through social media. So many ordinary people allow an extraordinary amount of time to go to this meaningless activities and simple things such as excessive TV watching or excessive entertainment. Extraordinary leaders go above and beyond what's usual, regular, and customary to notice the opportunities that are in front of them, and they don't just notice it and forget about it, they jot it down. So maybe an encouragement that I would ask everybody is to jot it down. Have a notepad or have your smartphone device available and begin a file of storing some of the things that you're noticing. It might just be the colors on the drive to work. Maybe it's the idea of saying, I'm going to stop and say hello to somebody that opens the door for me, or the barista at your favorite coffee shop. Become a more extraordinary person, an extraordinary noticer of extraordinary things. Vehicles.
I love that. One of the things that I've cultivated over the years, and this started in 1975 when I was at the U.S. Junior Chamber of Commerce National Headquarters. I was their program manager in charge of the leadership training programs. And I wrote a manual on what was called communication dynamics, the dynamics of communicating well. And I decided to really put a focus on finding things to compliment and looking for ways that I could compliment other people genuinely that would be well accepted by them, not just trivial things like, well, you look nice today. I mean, that's nice, but you could be a whole lot better. So I started cultivating the skill of delivering compliments, genuine, sincere compliments. And you were mentioning baristas. I said to a barista the other morning, I said, what a delightful smile. I said, you just warm up the room. I said, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you keep yourself cheerful even though you're working hard. And she said, well, it's something that I decided to do and it's important to me. And I said, well, it matters to me too. So thank you. And here's your tip, by the way. So, it just brightened her day a little bit. When I was saying to someone just the other day, when I see someone like a homeless person on the street, I don't engage with them because I realize, where that leads, and it's usually an unpleasant thing. But I make eye contact with them and acknowledge them with dignity. And I think that matters to them. I know it would matter to me. One of the worst things we can do to somebody is just not even look at them, not even talk to them, not even listen when they're talking, because then they feel like they don't matter, and that leads to depression so quickly. So one time my wife and I went to a couples communication seminar, and it came to the point where we were asked to do an exercise in front of the group. We were supposed to get in front of the group as couples, one at a time, and take turns complimenting what we admired in each other. And Paula said, do that, do that. And I said, what? She said, you're really good at this. Well, what a nice thing to hear from your wife. And so we did. We volunteered and we got up there and I started. And I just started commenting on the things about her that I appreciated. And I was very specific on some things, you know, like I told her I like to kiss her right there on that little spot because that just, I don't know, it's special. And I like the way her shampoo smells when I kiss her on the side of her head. And I also complimented her on the fact that she's always cheerful and she's always humming a tune. And the way that she really takes an interest in other people's convenience or comfort or whatever. So it makes her an excellent hostess. And if you and I will cultivate the ability to notice more of these things, then we can convert that into the ability to comment on these things and to know when to do so, you know, personally, when to do so only professionally, when to do nothing and when to do something. So as you become skilled at this, which all starts with noticing more, in other words, being more intelligent about that moment, you will find that other people are drawn toward you. They want to be with you. They look at what you're doing and they want to follow that kind of an example. So it's a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah. Last week in episode 1, we talked about the definition of living an extraordinary life and what that meant. Today, we're talking a little bit more about doing a little bit more of evaluation, noticing more, becoming more aware of your patterns or some of the things that are going on inside your life. And I know that, Jim, you're very passionate about identifying extraordinary patterns or habits that we repeat on a daily basis. And there's some different categories that we've talked about, like money habits, health habits, relationship habits, our thinking habits. Even, you know, just kind of going through life, I realized that some of my thinking habits were not going to help me to live an extraordinary life. I oftentimes said things to myself that I would never say to another person. In my mind, not out loud, yeah. Or the way that I treated my family. I wouldn't treat my best customer that way, but oftentimes you fall into an older habit, and maybe it's, you know, shortness of temper, or maybe it's the idea of frustration. But oftentimes it's those habits that dictate our outcomes. Maybe we could talk about over these next few minutes about the habits. And before we do, I want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to throw a comment in if you're joining us live on the webinar, or share this particular video if you're watching it live or recorded. Share it with somebody else that you think would like to live a more extraordinary life, and throw in an emotion or maybe throw in a comment if you're watching us on Facebook Live or the recorded version, because we want this to be an interactive show and we love your feedback. Jim, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about habits and patterns.
Yeah, well, your habits, they show up in every aspect of your life, and you were commenting on one, like things that you would say to your family that you wouldn't say to anyone else. I've reflected on that because I've had the same kinds of experiences with family members over the years. And I've discovered something that kind of surprised me when I first ran across it or realized it. And that is the reason that we are sometimes really mean or harsh when talking to a family member is that because in that relationship, we feel safe in doing so. You say, well, you wouldn't do that to a stranger. That's right, because we're not sure whether we would be safe if we did that with a stranger. It might set the stranger off and get them so angry they'd attack us, right? So I think it's important for us to stop ourselves whenever we feel those urges to really be hateful or mean-spirited with a family member, and realize that just because we're safe doesn't mean it's okay to do that. And many times, we forget common courtesies that we would show to complete strangers, even jerks, that we don't show to our family members, like please and thank you, and would you mind if, and pardon me, or excuse me. Those little things, we stop saying them because we get so comfortable with each other. or we just go over and do something right in front of the other person instead of saying, excuse me, or just a moment, please. You know, those little things count. And if you stop doing those, then the relationship starts kind of drifting. And it becomes a different kind of a relationship, not a close, loving relationship. A loving relationship has its ups and downs, and there are times when you get angry at each other, and times when you think, what the heck were you thinking? And you really want to scold the other person. And I suppose it's appropriate to do so under certain circumstances. But we've got to remember that if this relationship really matters, we need to cultivate the habit of using the courtesies we would use with complete strangers in the context of our own relationship. David, you talked about money habits. You know, we've got habits as to how we spend money, how we receive money, how we process money, how we treat money. If we are aware of those habits, then we can become much more in control of our money than we ever were before. When I was teaching my son as a young teenager, like 12, 13 years old, how to manage money, the first thing I did was have him keep a written record every day of every penny that he got during the day and every penny that he spent during the day. I said, you don't have to justify it. All you got to do is write it down. And so for several days in a row, I coached him on that, and he had a little notepad right by the side of his bed. And he did that. And then I would check with him every few days to help him refresh the habit. And after a while, he had a pretty comprehensive little notepad filled with the money he got, the money he found on the ground, the money grandma sent to him, money that came from a birthday, the money that someone gave him for picking up trash, and the money he spent on everything, you know, trivial things and bigger things. And then I took him to the next level of noticing more, and I had him keep a record in categories: things that last, things that don't. So instead of just recording the money that came in and left, he was recording the money in the categories of things that last, like savings or a shirt that you bought or something like that, things that don't, like a movie he went to see or an ice cream cone that he ate or something like that. So he became aware of tangible and intangible. And then the next year when he was, I don't know, 14 or 15, we started breaking it out into categories, you know, school-related expenditures, entertainment, etc. And then finally, I led him a few years later to develop a budget in advance for the entire year by category, and then track it every few months. And so he became really, really conscious of money as it existed in his world. And today he's a 46-year-old successful executive, senior executive with the Four Seasons Hotels, and living a good life. And he's got 2 kids, and he's good with money. Well, surprise, surprise, right? He learned to notice more.
Yeah, and I think that you know, there's a lot of people out there that are watching this that, you know, they're looking for the fast success. They want the more extraordinary financial. Yeah, aren't we all looking for something that's faster? We want more extraordinary financial success. We want more extraordinary health in our habits. We want extraordinary relationships and thinking habits, and we want to be extraordinary communicators and leaders and all these things. But you know, success is attracted to the person that you become. And what we're talking about here is defining what an extraordinary life is, and noticing more will begin to make you more of the attractive person. You'll attract more opportunity, more top-rated clients, more success in all aspects of your life. And what will happen, and Jim will share with you all of this, he's been around some of these extraordinary leaders, and there is this compounding of extraordinary patterns or extraordinary habits that begin to compound so that your success starts speeding up. But it doesn't speed up until you start to adopt these habits and start seeing these start to work together. So when your health habits start to work with your relationship habits, and your relationship habits start to developing your money habits, and then you all of a sudden start to see these habits and disciplines start paying off the rewards, then you become even more excited. You learn more to become more, and then you achieve more, and that starts a new process of wanting to learn more and adopt better habits.
That's right.
Jim, as we wrap up in the last 5 minutes, I want to make sure that everybody knows that they can watch more recordings and have better opportunities to get more information and join our Extraordinary Life community and tribe by going to theextraordinarylife.com. But what I'd like to do in wrapping up, Jim, is to really give some takeaway actions where those of our watchers today can actually go out and within 1 to 2 steps, they can start to notice more and begin to live a more extraordinary life.
You bet. The person you'll be determines the future you'll see. So as you do what David was just suggesting, as you cultivate these various habits, you start cultivating new behaviors that over time develop into habits, that's going to change the size of the future that's attracted to you. So what you want doesn't yet want you until you become an eligible receiver. When you become more and more ready for the success that you're hoping to achieve by developing the right habits, the right thinking, the right discipline, then the things you want will start wanting you. In other words, it'll work like magnetism and they'll be drawn toward you. And you'll get that exponential growth burst occasionally that David was alluding to. One of the big ways this shows up is your words, your choice of words, your language. The quick story, I was in Juneau, Alaska many years ago, and I was there to do a seminar, and I was staying in the home of a guy who was part of the organization putting on the seminar. Most negative guy I've ever seen in my life. He couldn't complete a sentence without saying, I can't, it won't, or it's impossible, or there's no way. Everything he said, it was like he'd manufactured his own cloud and carried it everywhere he went, and he'd turn it on anytime he got an opportunity to get it to rain on something. And I said, my God, man, you are so negative on every subject. You need to temper that. He said, well, I can't stop. Duh. And I said, yeah, you can. I said, the first thing you can do is stop using the word can't and say, don't yet know how. He said, well, I can't get, I don't what yet know how to do that, so I can't. I said, jeepers, we got a long way to go. And I said, let's do something just for the remainder of the day. Every time you say can't or some kind of a big negative, I want you to put a quarter in a jar. He said, okay. And he got a jar. Well, about an hour later, there's $3 or $4 worth of quarters in there. And I said, okay, you can stop. This is not working. I said, but clearly, man, we've got to find a way to interrupt your pattern and start cultivating a new pattern. So look at yourself in that context. If you find yourself using can't, ask yourself when you use it, is that what I really mean? It cannot be done. It is impossible. Like, I can't get this jar open. No, what you mean is I can't yet get this jar open. It's difficult to open this jar. Because if you can't get the jar open, give up, for heaven's sakes, and go do something useful. If you can get the jar open but haven't yet, then find a way to get it open, okay? I can't see how we can do that. I don't yet see how we can do that. Yet is a wonderful word. Insert yet at the end of can't and then start eliminating can't and replacing it with some other language. What you'll find is by noticing more about the words you're using, you will be changing the thoughts you're thinking and the patterns you're following, and your life will become more extraordinary.
Fantastic. Well, that is a great action step for this week. Fairly simple for those of you that are tracking with us and are kind of moving through the process. The first week we asked you to define what an extraordinary life meant. The second thing we're asking you to do is to notice more and to take note of that by jotting it down, identifying those habits or patterns that are either extraordinary or maybe they are ordinary and they are even failing in some capacity. And that's not to be discouraged about where you're currently at, because Jim and I both have come from places that were very ordinary or failing. But it's becoming awakened to the fact that we're not on a good trajectory. We're not on a good path. and it's time for a change. And why not now? Why not you? You can make the changes, and we hope that you join us next week as we begin to start focusing in on applying the catalyst. A catalyst is an agent that provokes or speeds up significant change. And Jim and I have found that the catalyst that moves people from where they are to a more extraordinary life is when they really get clear on what their dreams or vision or mission is in their life. And when you can begin to start clarifying some extraordinary dreams in your physical health, in your relationships, in your career or business, that becomes exciting. And that will get you to start getting really focused on developing the habits and the disciplines to get the extraordinary results that you desire. So Jim, any final words before we wrap up today and move on to episode 3 next week?
I want to thank Candy for her nice comments. Candy made a nice comment in the chat room. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, because it gives us energy. It's like an old movie. David Jansen was playing a character in a movie years ago. I don't remember the movie. But he had reunited with his son after a long period of being estranged. And his son said something and said, "We could do so-and-so." And David Jansen's character interrupted him. He said, "We." He said, "It gives me strength when you say that. It gives me your strength." And isn't that the truth? You know, we're not in this alone. And this, I guarantee you, this is fun. It is not hard work. I mean, maybe it's hard work technically, but it's fun living in an extraordinary way. So just look at your ordinary and add an extra. Whatever that category happens to be, just ask yourself, what can I add extra? And live the extraordinary life.
For those of you who haven't liked our Facebook page, be sure to go to fb.com or facebook.com/live the extraordinary life, or just go to our website, theextraordinarylife.com, and click on the community tab at the very top, and you'll be able to find other places that you can plug in, including our private Extraordinary Life Facebook group, as well as download the free ebook. So for Jim Cathcart and myself, David Bush, thanks for watching episode 2 of the Extraordinary Life Show. We look forward to seeing you here next week on Tuesday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, David. Bye, everyone.